hear, long before you hear the ICJ's verdict on whether it is self-defense or not, you're going to hear that there is a ceasefire. I think negotiations for a ceasefire are ongoing. You have a major effort is being made to try to reach a ceasefire before the month of Ramadan, which commences around 9th or 10th of March.
Then yesterday, Keir Starmer told delegates at the Scottish Labour Party conference that the Labour Party now back calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. This is the first time that the Labour Party leader has made this commitment.
An end to the fighting, not just now, not just for a pause, but permanently. A ceasefire that lasts, conference, that is what must happen now. The fighting must stop now.
And this morning, the Shadow Secretary for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting, told Times Radio that Israel had gone beyond self-defence in its attacks on Gaza.
Every country in the world has the right to defend itself from external threats. But what we've seen during the course of this war is conduct that goes beyond reasonable self-defence and raises serious questions about breaches of international law, which are being looked at by the ICJ.
So let's talk now to Nomi Bar-Yaacov, who's an Associate Fellow of the International Security Programme at Chatham House. Very good afternoon from us.
Good afternoon.
Is there a very clear definition of what constitutes self-defence in a situation like this? And if there is, who has made that definition?
Well, I think self-defense in this particular case is being examined by the International Court of Justice. Israel pleaded self-defense in the case that was brought to the ICJ by South Africa. And the court has not ruled on this issue yet because they only ruled on provisional measures. But I think I'd rather leave it to the judges of the International Court of Justice to decide on this issue.
Sure.
And not necessarily to Wes steering.
Yes, but this is the huge problem, obviously, isn't it? That politicians around the world will be asked for their opinion about what's happening in Gaza at the moment, and they do have to give that opinion. And it can seem very difficult then for people listening to that answer to really know what it is that's being said and also to believe that there's some kind of weight attached to it. I mean, do you think it really matters to either of these main players in this horrible situation what the leader of an opposition party in another country might say?
Well, I don't think that the leader of the opposition, I don't think Sir Keir Starmer, being a lawyer, would delve into whether this is self-defense or not. And I would assume he probably thinks that it is, but it's just, maybe there's an issue of proportionality. But I don't want to put any words into, his mouth. He's called for a ceasefire. He's changed his position. And I think that that is a major shift. And I think that is very significant. And I think that's far more significant than the technical legal argument on whether this, is self-defense. Clearly, Israel's arguing that it is self-defense. And the question is, South Africa is arguing that it is not, and the Israeli legal advisor at the ICJ, the lead Tal Becker, said he found it preposterous. But it's a question really of where do we? I think it's the question is where do we head from now? We have more than 28,000 confirmed deaths by the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. That's a huge number. Hamas is still holding on to 134 hostages. 32 of them have been confirmed dead by Israel, died in captivity. It's time to release the hostages. It's time to reach a ceasefire. And I think we should maybe leave the argument, the legal arguments, as I said initially, to the court.
Sure. When might we hear something, though, from the ICJ?
Oh, I think not for a long time, but I think it's a lunar calendar, as you know, and that means that we don't know the exact date, but it's around there. And I think that's where the push should be. The push should be there won't be a ceasefire without a hostage release deal. That's very clear. So that's where the push, and that's what really is important. It's important to push for there to be an international consensus for the release of the hostages, which is part and parcel of a ceasefire. A ceasefire cannot be reached without that.
Yeah. And can I just push you a little bit more, though,
Yes.
Nomi, with your expertise on the kind of weight that is attached to what the international community is saying? Can you explain it better to us? Who are the voices that would really make any difference? And in asking that question, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't attach importance to what Wes Streeting has said this morning. Every time someone is asked about this, it really is important what they say, isn't it?
No, I think it's very, very important what they say, and I think Wes Streeting, he basically said it's. I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think you don't need Wes. Streeting said you've got Sir Keir Starmer saying the same thing. As I said, Sir Keir Starmer won't talk. I don't think about self-defense, but he will talk about the ceasefire. I think it is extremely significant. But I think the self-defense issue is a legal issue, and the ceasefire issue is an issue of ending the suffering on both sides, ending the suffering of the Palestinians who are being bombed, and ending the suffering of the Israeli the families of the hostages and the Israeli public that, of course, is empathetic with the families of the hostages and the hostages being held in captivity. And I think that needs to end. And I think that the voices are very, very important. And the more constructive the voices are in trying to help reach that deal, the better.
Yeah. One final question. Were it to be the case that the ICJ did rule that Israel has gone beyond self-defense, what would the repercussion be?
No, I don't think that's the way the ICJ is looking at it. I think you've got the merits. You've got different stages. You've had the provisional measures that have been issued, and then you will have a lengthy period of time, months, in which they will be discussing whether to move to the merit stage or not. And we're not there yet. And I think I assume it's likely that the case will move to merit, and merit takes years. So it will be the short answer to your question, many years.
Right. Thank you very much indeed for all of that. That's Nomi Bar-Yaacov, who's an Associate Fellow of the International Security Programme